Welcome to the Journeys of the Curious Traveler, Episode 3, African Safari. In the last episode, I finished my time in Cape Town. My guide, Etnie, picked me up at the hotel and drove me to the Cape Town International Airport. My destination was Hoedspruit Eastgate Airport. It would be a 4.5-hour flight landing in Central Africa in the middle of nowhere, on an airstrip owned by the South African Air Force. I was about to embark on an experience that captured my imagination. In my wildest dreams, I couldn't have anticipated what this safari would be like. As I tell my story, occasionally I will take a deep dive into a historical or cultural tidbit, and you will hear this sound. I had a driver waiting for me at the airport. He told me his name was Witch Doctor. He had a tag on his shirt that said Witch Doctor, so we will go with Witch Doctor. It would be about a 1.5-hour drive to my camp at Motswari Private Game Reserve. As we were driving, I saw zebras casually hanging out along the road. Witch Doctor told me about different animals that sometimes wander into his village. He said they become a feast that is shared by many. I asked him if he had a favorite. He said they are all delicious. The drive to Motswari was a series of dirt roads getting deeper and deeper into the bush and far away from civilization. When I arrived to check in, the first thing they had me do was sign a release in case of injury or accident while on safari. I thought, okay, this is serious. My bungalow had the usual mosquito net around the bed and special water ready for me. It was a cute little place in the middle of the camp. Oh yeah, they gave me a whistle as well and said, if I had any problems with animals at any time, day or night, blow the whistle and help will come. Another fun reminder of where I was at. After checking in, my timing was good as they were about to serve lunch. It was quite a spectacle as the food arrived at the dining area by the staff as they performed a very elaborate African song and dance with impeccable style and delivery. About an hour later, I was off on my first 3-hour safari. I was with a group of 2 German couples who have been on multiple safaris before, so I sort of kept my eyes on them because of their experience. We were in a multi-level Range Rover with 3 stacked rows of seats behind the driver. The 2 couples were in the rows in front of me, and I had the back row to myself, up a little higher than everyone else. The Rover had no roof and no doors. It was completely open. Our wonderful guide was also the driver, and up in front of the Range Rover on a special seat dangling in the front was our tracker. The name of our guide was Eden Mulanga, and our group was out searching for animals in the vast animal reserve. Several other groups were also out in their Range Rovers, and they were all communicating by radio. So if anyone saw any animals, they could share it with the group, the community. Eden had a little heart-to-heart with us before we departed. He told us not to stand up, not to get out of the Rover, and most of all, never ever run. He said every animal in the bush is faster than us. Running will only ensure your demise and put the rest of the group at risk. I also noted that Eden and the tracker did not have any weapons, so this was going to be quite an experience. Finally, he asked what we hoped to see on this safari. Some of my German companions said lions, hippos, elephants, giraffes. I spoke up and said I would like to see a rhino. About 5 minutes after leaving the camp, he stopped and investigated some tracks. They believe the tracks were from a pack of wild dogs, the rarest animals to be seen in Africa. After getting back into action, my first thought was how fast our driver was driving. I also noted that the roads were surprisingly good. I held on most of the time so I wouldn't fly out of the Range Rover. Our first major sighting was a huge pack of impala. They are a breed of antelope. Eden said they were like the McDonald's of the bush, fast food available everywhere. It is interesting to see the large pack of them always on alert, always nervous. They prefer to congregate in a big open space so nothing can sneak up on them. Next, we ran into an old warthog that had seen a long life. We were able to get a good look at him about 20 to 30 feet away from our vehicle. Then finally, we saw one of the big five, elephants in the wild. There were probably about 7 or 8 of them on both sides of the road. There were also a couple of babies in the group. Elephants are definitely the true kings of the jungle, and they know it. Even the young babies tried to intimidate us by approaching our rover with ears flapping and trunk bobbling up and down. He was trying to scare us, and we all chuckled. There were a couple of adults in particular that were keeping a close eye on our interactions with the baby and started creeping closer to us on both sides of the road. Eden decided it was starting to get slightly dangerous and made the judgment to drive on. At one point, the baby and the couple of adults came within 10 feet of our vehicle. I was just astounded at the experience so far, and I was only an hour or so into the first visit into the African bush. Eden told us that up ahead he got a report that there were lions laying on the road. Excited and nervous, we drove to find the lions. It was about a 20-minute drive, but Eden found them. There were 4 adult lions. This was number 2 of the African Big Five animals that I've now experienced. As we got close to the 4 lions, the driver pulled up about 10 feet away and turned off the vehicle. The lions walked all around the Range Rover. A couple of them were playing, and one gave a soft roar. One of them rubbed by the side of my open-seated row in the vehicle, about 5 feet away, and then he decided to lay down by the back tire just below my position. At this stage, I slowly scooted to the other side of my row. I was both excited and nervous, but I observed everyone else, and they were happy and taking it all in. I remembered what Eden said, never stand up, get out, and never run. The 2 lions that were playing decided to lay down on the side of the road under a shade tree and give each other cat baths. I had to trust the process, stay calm, and enjoy the spine-tingling experience. We spent 20 to 30 minutes parked, taking it all in with the lions all around our vehicle. We finally moved on from the lions as Eden had received a tip that there was a leopard in a tree not too far away. The leopard was number 3 of the Big Five of Africa, and I was only on my first day. When we caught up to him in the tree, he was very stressed out. Eden concluded that something chased him up the tree and probably took his kill. Not too far away, the tracker said he saw a hyena, so likely a pack of hyenas attacked the solo leopard, took his kill, and chased him up a tree. Just like back in the real world, the dog chased the cat up the tree. Except the hyenas are closer to a cat breed than a dog. I did not feel quite as anxious around the leopard in the tree compared to the pride of lions surrounding our vehicle. But at one point, we did drive under the leopard while he was in the tree. After the leopard We concluded our first day in the bush with a sunset happy hour. Eden pulled over in a big open area that was relatively safe and offered us all mixed drinks, pretzels, and nuts. I'm not a drinker, so I had a ginger ale. However, my recent experience made me think about it. After happy hour, it was dark, completely dark. We drove back with headlights, and our tracker had a spotlight as well, looking for crossing animals. Holy cow, day one of the safari was beyond my wildest dreams. It was surreal as each of the guests had to be escorted by flashlight to their room and then picked up for dinner and escorted to the dining area. This was done for safety, of course. The day was action-packed, to say the least. I flew to a bush airport, was driven to the camp by Witch Doctor, enjoyed an African song and dance at lunch, took part in a safari late into the darkness of the evening, then back for dinner and early wake-up for a morning safari. All told, on my first session into the bush, I saw 3 of the big 5 game animals of Africa: lions, elephants, and leopards.
We'll be right back.
Hello, everybody. Click the Tell Me What You Think link and tell me what you think. The next day for breakfast, I asked Eden how he manages the guests in the bush. How does he know to trust us to behave properly around dangerous animals? He told me he starts slowly with how he exposes us to the animals and checks our behavior. The elephants are a big step before he moves on to the cats, but he's always monitoring our behavior very closely. Our breakfast was made to order and very good. We were off into the bush early at 6 a.m. It was February, but in the southern hemisphere, it was summer in Africa. On day 2, we were venturing closer to some of the lakes and the water holes. We were in hot pursuit of several opportunities shared over the radio. It's hard to put into words how wonderful the experience was, and as we were cruising at high speed through the maze of roads. I sat back in my third row seating above it all, sometimes having to duck a branch, but always with a nice breeze in my face. Holding on, absolutely, but closing my eyes and deeply enjoying the experience like nothing else in the world. There is nowhere on earth like Africa and its animals. By 7:30 a.m., I had seen a few jackals, which is a canine relative, not far away from some gazelles, a relative of the deer. I saw a wildebeest, a couple of hyenas, a few elands, which are also antelope deer relatives, and a big water buck, which is also a relative of the deer. Then we followed a tip. It was almost like chasing after a unicorn. Over the radio, there was talk about a baby white lion was discovered on the far reaches of the reserve. Eden had been giving safaris for almost 10 years and had never seen a white lion cub. You could sense his passion about this topic. They are extremely rare. It was an hour drive to the area that was rumored to have a litter of cubs, and one of them being a white baby cub. It was so far away and a bit of a risk for Eden, as he doesn't want to spend so much of our time driving, but he thought it was worth the risk for all of us to see something so incredibly rare. We got to the area, and we indeed found a mother lion and a nearby buffalo kill, but also, after exhaustive search, we were not able to find the unicorn. We gave up for the morning and headed back to the camp to rest up. The camp I stayed at had a fence around one side and a big watering hole on the other side to keep the animals out, at least most of the animals. But I did meet some antelope near the dining area. And I also came across an old warthog right in my path as I was walking to lunch. I decided to take a different path. I don't think they're aggressive, but I didn't want to invade his space and find out. Around 4 p.m., we gathered together and were ready to go out into the bush again. About 15 minutes into our drive, we saw a family of warthogs running along. It looked like a mother, father, and a baby. I don't think any of them was the same warthog that I saw in camp. Then the search was on for my requested animal, the rhinoceros. Rhino poaching is a huge problem in Africa. A single kilo of rhino horn can be sold on the black market for as much as $100,000. The rhino poaching problem was first mentioned to me by my guide in Cape Town, but it got even more serious as I arrived in the bush. The key to the poacher's success is receiving inside knowledge coming from the safaris that find them, like mine. They investigate the killings and people lose their jobs, sometimes go to jail, but an informant can be offered a large amount of money that changes their life. So, unfortunately, it can be lucrative for all parties involved. Why the demand for rhino horns? The Chinese have an insatiable desire for rhino horns. Many Chinese believe rhino horns have medicinal value, but there is no scientific proof to that belief. Rhino horns are made of keratin, the same thing human fingernails are made of. Other Chinese use rhino horns as a status symbol of wealth. It is all a terrible shame if you ask me. They are wonderful animals, and I am sad to say rhinos are considered critically endangered. It was a lot of work for our tracker, but he found some evidence of a single rhino in the area. They were gauging his direction and working hard to triangulate our path to come close to him. Of all the animals in Africa, to me, the rhino is the closest thing to something that feels old and prehistoric. As we drove, we finally had our first good glimpse of him. He wasn't moving fast, kind of walking or a slow trot, but we were gradually getting closer with the expert driving and angles we were taking. Finally, we parked as Eden was betting the rhino would be coming towards us, and he was right. He was just 20 to 30 feet away, slightly obstructed by a bush. He was not aggressive at all and seemed rather peaceful. We continued to follow him, and we got even closer at one point. I was taking some outstanding video, and I said on one of the videos, "This is my big chance." I had a running joke with a friend named Melissa that I would love to jump on the back of a rhino. I was close enough to make that a reality if I was so inclined. As we continued to pursue the rhino, a most unexpected viewing happened. 3 giraffe were about 20 to 30 yards away in a dense tree area, but I could see most of their upper bodies. I asked Eden if any predators pursue the giraffe. I suggested the large pack of hyenas. He said, "No, the hyenas steal the kills of other predators and don't often do the killing themselves." He said the only ones that might try would be a pride of lions, but they are very wary of the giraffe kick because it is so lethal. It could kill a lion easily, he said. The giraffe is such a beautiful creature, seeing it up close and personal in the wild. As the tracker and the guide expertly deciphered the trail of the rhino once again, another unexpected meeting of the animals occurred. As the rhino was making his way into a new area to the left of us, 2 elephants were standing to the right, observing the rhino. The first elephant spotted the rhino and crossed the road in front of us and moved in behind the rhino. We moved forward and then stopped about 50 feet ahead of this developing meeting of the 2 elephants and the rhino. The elephants are considerably bigger than the rhinos. The second elephant that was sneaking up behind the rhino was hidden. The first elephant that spotted the rhino and was waiting for him started to approach with flapping ears in a sign of intimidation. The rhino quickly scampered by the elephant, using some trees as an obstacle. I could really sense the fear from the rhinos and the utter confidence from the elephant. I think they were just teasing the rhinoceros because they could. We drove further up the road for about 10 minutes and came across a small water hole that was only big enough for 1 elephant. He was thoroughly enjoying the water as he was sucking it up with his trunk and spraying it all over his body. He seemed happy as can be as the water kept him cool in the sweltering summer sun. On cue, a bigger elephant started to approach the water hole. A beautiful confrontation began to play out. The bigger elephant walked right up to the smaller elephant standing in the water and pressed his head right up against the head of his smaller rival and intertwined their tusks. The bigger elephant also had tusks that were twice the size of the smaller guy. They were eye to eye, tusks to tusks, and trunk to trunk. The smaller elephant tried to stand on higher ground to appear bigger, but it wasn't fooling anybody. After this tense confrontation continued for another 5 minutes, the smaller elephant begrudgingly backed up and walked away, giving the bigger guy the win and the exclusivity to the waterhole. He looked back a couple of times, lamenting his loss. As we left this amazing scene, we tried to catch up to our rhinoceros. We passed by a good-sized lake, and I saw my first hippopotamuses. They walk along the bottom of the lake and stick their heads above when they can. The lake was also quite infested with crocodiles. I asked Eden how they get along with each other, the hippos and the crocodiles. He said generally they get along just fine, but occasionally crocodiles will kill a baby hippo. He said when that happens, the crocodiles feel the wrath of the hippos. They even know and remember which one did the killing of their baby and hunt them down. Near the same lake where we saw the hippo, we saw an old buffalo. Now our search to see the Big Five was complete: elephant, lion, leopard, rhino, and now the buffalo. Finally, we caught up to our rhino again. This time we did a lot of off-roading to get very close. I had another chance to jump on his back. That was how close we got. The rhino kept moving on his path, which led right up to a major paved road where cars were stopped all along the road to see the rhino crossing. Compliments of our driver and tracker. It was a glorious viewing. I got to spend over 30 minutes in pretty close proximity to the mighty rhinoceros. Our hosts had a special surprise for all the guests as we were starting to near the evening hours. We were heading to a location with a big surprise awaiting us. As we were near our destination, a herd of about 10 to 12 zebra were right next to our parked Rover. We were so close I could have jumped on the back of one of them as well. So beautiful to see them up close. I asked Eden why zebras have never been domesticated like their horse cousins. He said their backs are not strong enough to hold weight, plus they are extremely difficult to deal with. When we finally arrived at the undisclosed location out in the middle of the bush, we noticed dining tables, lighting, and a large fire where all the food was cooked. The pathway was set up with white paper bag lanterns. It was quite a beautiful scene that must have taken many hours to set up. Our group sat at a table, me and the 2 German couples, along with our driver and tracker. While at the table, the locals talked about the bad immigration problems they had in South Africa from Zimbabwe citizens coming over. This led the Germans to ask about the American election and the new administration going into office. It was interesting to hear from these 4 Germans. They especially wanted to talk about American immigration policy and their own challenges in Germany. They all tended to agree with the strong immigration policy by the incoming administration as an answer to their own immigration woes with the Middle Eastern refugees they brought into their country. I told them the significant difference between Germany and America is that America is a country of immigrants. We have had waves of immigrants from many cultures and countries throughout our history, but once in America, at least by the 2nd generation, the immigrants become part of the bigger story of America, part of the melting pot. Germany has always been a more homogeneous people, and once they started settling large numbers of Syrians, Iraqis, Afghanis, and Turks, they didn't seem to have a plan to meld them into their larger community, and now the refugee settlements tend to be a big problem. No solutions were found during dinner, but it was a nice chat on the complex politics of countries helping people and the desire for people to find a better life for themselves and their families. On our drive back to the camp, it was pitch dark again. We encountered a family of elephants crossing just a few feet in front of our Range Rover. Always edge of your seat excitement in the African bush. Our 3rd day was the last day of the safari. Eden wanted to dedicate this final trip of the morning to searching for that unicorn again, the white lion cub. We were off at 6 a.m. that morning as usual. It was quite a drive to that area where it was supposedly seen. I would say 45 minutes one way. We saw a couple of hyena in the area, which is always a little ominous when you know there are baby cubs in the vicinity. We drove around looking, but more importantly, our tracker and guide were looking. They are the experts. And we found the unicorn. 3 baby lion cubs, and one of the cubs was all white. The zoom on my iPhone took some incredible video of the white lion baby. Later that morning, Eden cornered me at breakfast and was anxiously wanting to see my video. He said it was some of the best video he has ever seen of a baby white lion cub in the wild, and asked if I could share it with him. Of course I did. It was truly rare and a beautiful honor. While I was sitting at my table for breakfast, I was facing out to the large water hole. An elephant came up just across from my breakfast table on the other side of the watering hole. I think he must have smelled my eggs. Only in Africa. In the late afternoon, we departed on our final visit into the wilderness. When I thought it could not have gotten any better, it got better. We left the camp at 4 p.m. for the safari. Eden got a good lead from a colleague that a pair of lions were mating in a big open field about 20 minutes away from our position. This ought to be interesting, I thought. My first thought was that it seemed like we were invading their privacy if we would to approach them, and maybe they would get upset. Female lions choose their mates based on a combination of physical traits and social status, often favoring males with larger, darker manes, a sign of strength and health. While males compete for mating opportunities, females have some degree of choice, particularly within a pride where they may mate with multiple males. When lions begin mating, a pair will typically copulate every 20 to 30 minutes for several days, with up to 50 copulations possible in a 24-hour period. This intense mating activity can last for up to 4 to 5 days. The frequency decreases as the female's receptivity wanes. Male lions become visually mature as they grow their manes. They start to develop their signature long, thick hair on their heads and necks when they are about 2 years old and achieve fully developed manes when they are about 5 to 6 years old. As we approached the two lions that were both laying down, we parked and turned off our rover about 20 feet from them. 2 days ago, I had seen the 4 lions that were hanging out along our road. None of them were sexually mature males. This was the first time I saw the famous king of the jungle with his fully developed mane around his head. At first, I was even more on guard and nervous than the first lion encounter, but I quickly got comfortable as I could see they were completely focused on each other. About 5 minutes after we arrived, the female got up and did a circle around the male lion. It was her signal to him that it was time to mate again. It was short and intense, probably about 45 to 60 seconds. Then the male circled her and collapsed to the ground with a roar. Wow, I could have never imagined I would see 2 lions mating in the middle of the African bush 20 feet away. We left the lions in peace after spending about 20 minutes with them. They were sleeping in between their mating episodes. About a 10-minute drive from the lions, we stumbled upon 2 beautiful giraffes, but this time they were out in the open and not hidden by the jungle. They were snacking on some leaves atop a tree. Just beautiful. After spending the better part of an entire field visit a couple of days ago looking for a single rhino, we came across about 4 of them together hanging out. When it rains, it pours. First the lions, then the giraffe, and now a bunch of rhinos. Eden then let us know we were in pursuit of a very large hyena pack. Hyena, like the lions, like the lion prides, can sometimes be as big as 30. Some hyena packs can get as big as 100 members. Interesting to note, hyena do not belong to the canine family. They are closer in relation to the cats. We approached a huge den that looked a bit like a big dirt mound. All the adults were gone. No one was home babysitting the juvenile hyenas who were napping all over the mound. There were about 10 of these babies. As we parked near the den, a few of them wandered up to our vehicle to say hi. They really like the tires, Eden said, but have sometimes been known to bite and damage the tires. I had to tell one baby to run off as he was really interested in the tire just below me. They were super cute little guys and girls. They really do resemble young dogs. I thought to myself that the adult hyenas wouldn't like us infringing on their den and enjoying their babies, but we never saw any adults. They must have been out scavenging. As we drove away, some of the babies wanted to follow. About a mile or so down the road, I saw another jackal walking along. They looked like coyotes to me, definitely part of the canine family. At dusk, as dusk started to approach that evening, we pulled off into a big vacant area and had our final happy hour in the bush. The next morning, I had a driver take me to a small runway about 30 minutes from the camp. There was an airline out of Johannesburg that operates small planes out into the bush camps. It was strange to be at a small runway with a few animals congregating in different areas and wildlife all around me. There would be no dropping me off to wait for the plane by myself. Everyone must stay in the cars until the plane is on the ground for safety reasons. I was the only guest as the small 8-seat plane landed with two very professional pilots grabbing my bags and getting me settled in the plane. They had to stop at two other small camps to pick up others before we were on our way to Kruger Mpumalanga International Airport. The flight took just over an hour. From this airport, I would be able to fly all the way to my next destination in a normal 737-sized plane. Next time on The Journeys of the Curious Traveler, I continue my African venture with the final stop, Zimbabwe. Thank you for listening.